I'm gonna get in trouble for what I'm gonna say. Hey guys, what's up? This is my second attempt at trying to record this video. I had already recorded 40 minutes worth of me talking about this game, and it got deleted, so that's pretty awesome. But some of my ending thoughts stayed, so I'm gonna try to redo this. So before we get any further, I'm going to say spoiler alert. Obviously spoilers are going to be everywhere in this. I feel like you can't truly talk about this game and the experience of this game without including spoilers. Alright, now that we're all in the club here, I think for starters I am probably in the minority here of being extremely happy with this game. Watch how many people are gonna click off right now. I thought this was an amazing experience. I was blown away by how much it reminded me of the first game in terms of storytelling. I will say that this is not going to be like my standard reviews. I haven't done that many reviews, but I kind of have my little way I do it of like going through the look, going through the feel. This one is going to be more around my specific thoughts and how I felt about the game, because I think that's where the fan base is divided. It's not whether or not the gameplay is swift and fluid, because it is. It's not whether the graphics are good or bad, because they're fantastic. Really, the line is being drawn at the storytelling and what story they had told. I think I just want to focus on my overall feeling as I was playing the game. Before I dive in, I have to talk about the obvious spoilers that happened. The leaks that occurred in April, I believe. I was not immune to being hit with those leaks and was not happy about it. When I found out that there were leaks online that were huge story plots and cutscenes and things like that, I wanted to avoid them like the plague. I tried to stay off Twitter. I stayed off anything remotely related to The Last of Us. I had watched the last trailer and I reacted to it, which was mistake number one, because that is one of the places where somebody blew some of the leaks for me. Thanks, but little do they know that trying to blow stuff for me is not going to deter me from playing a game, because I'm a grown-ass woman, and if I want to play a game and see for myself, I'm going to. I'm not going to let you try to ruin it for me. A couple months after the leaks, before the game had come out, I was on Twitter and some stuff got blown for me there. And I wasn't even looking for it, but it was everywhere. I don't think anyone, even if you weren't interested in The Last of Us 2, hadn't heard about these giant leaks, and the fact that the fans and the community were pissed and really, really upset about what was contained in these leaks. So the things that I knew going into this game, I knew that Joel was going to die. I knew he was going to die at the hands of this Abby character, which I knew everyone had been calling a tranny apparently, which is not accurate and not to mention rude. I knew this Abby character was going to kill him with a golf club. I knew at some point we were going to play as her, and I knew what her motivations were behind killing Joel. So I knew a lot of giant big things in the game. I will say maybe perhaps me knowing what happened made it obviously a lot less of a shock for me of the actual action of it happening. But I will say that the moment I heard years ago when I was at PlayStation Experience and they were really showing the first trailer from The Last of Us 2, my immediate thought was, wow, they're making Last of Us 2? Well, Joel's definitely gonna die, because in the first game, everything is obviously so important with their relationship, and he almost died. So I was like, it's only logical to expect that one of those characters are gonna die. And my money was on Joel. Also, as the details were coming out, the closer we got to launch, we knew that the main character was going to be Ellie. So another reason why I thought, okay, Joel's going to die. Kind of took me a couple weeks to get to the game. So I think when we got to that scene in the game, I knew it must have happened early, because people's thumbnails were very they were like 2 hours in, part 2, part 1 of the game. So I was like, okay, this is going to happen early. So my reaction was not like so many others where they were crying, they were upset, they were screaming. I was more of like, oh, okay, this is how it's happening? All right. And a lot of people are talking about, the gruesomeness of it and how could you put a character like that, that's so beloved, put him out like that. And I think when I found out the leaks that is how Abby killed him, I was thinking, spoiler alert for Walking Dead, if you haven't seen the Negan season, skip ahead a minute. I thought we were going to see the level of Glenn's death by Negan. Brutal, showing it all, gruesome, disgusting gore, his eyeball popping out, and him communicating with his loved one, like, I love you, I'll find you. I'll find you. That was in my head what I was mentally preparing myself for. So I think I was pleasantly surprised that that didn't happen that way. It was bad, yes, but it was mostly off screen. Obviously, Joel, I love Joel. I loved The Last of Us 1. It's like top 10 games of mine. I absolutely adored these characters. I adored his relationship with Ellie. If you didn't like Joel, then there was something clearly wrong with you. But we also knew Joel did some bad things. We also knew Joel used to kind of be a bad guy. So it's not like he's a saint character. And I think Glenn was a saint character in The Walking Dead. I kind of was like, okay, that's really sad, but not as bad as I thought. And so that's why my reaction was the way it was. I'm gonna go back for a second and actually talk about how impressed I was with the beginning of the game, the opening of the game, in the town of Jackson. I was blown away by how alive it felt, listening to conversations between the civilians, seeing the little children in this town. I was immediately concerned about the people in this town. I was immediately connected to the people in this town. I already was like liking Jesse. I was like, this is a nice character. Immediately started liking Dina when we were introduced to Dina. I know a lot of people were like, well, I don't really care about any of these characters in this game other than Ellie and Joel. And it's like, I feel like you've missed something then, because I just absolutely adored Dina. The little conversations between them, the joking, the messing around. I thought she was just a fantastic character, and this game so reminded me of the first one because of this very real conversations between characters. It's human. It's almost just like two people having a conversation, and you kind of forget that you're playing a video game. The graphics are obviously fantastic, and so everything just felt so real, and it was like the town was alive and breathing, and the lighting is just great in this game. There were so many times throughout this game where I would be looking around, I'm like, this is beautiful. It's devastating because it's the apocalypse and everything shouldn't be run over with green, but there were so many instances where photo mode I didn't even play around with because I was so determined to get to the end of the game. But it's like, you could have taken a picture anywhere in that game and there's something gorgeous or impressive to look at. Obviously, The Last of Us 2 is broken up into two giant chapters, the Ellie chapter and the Abby chapter. As Ellie, we witness, our father figure being murdered in front of us, and there's absolutely nothing we can do, and we're helpless. But for some reason, they keep us alive, and so our quest is now for revenge. And I wanted revenge for Ellie, for sure. I'm a freaking revenge movie fan. One of my favorite movies of all time is Kill Bill. And I know that one of the main complaints about this game is that you play Seattle Day 1 through 3 as Ellie, and then you play Seattle 1 through 3 as Abby. People were not happy about that. Obviously, choosing to have somebody that murdered your beloved character from the first one, your main character of the first one, is a very ballsy move. And a lot of people were saying that they should have had it intercut, where it was, you're playing day 1 in Seattle as Ellie, and then you're playing day 1 as Abby, and then you're playing day 2 as Ellie, playing day 2 as Abby. I really disagree with that, because to have the character that you are hating the entire first 10 hours of the game and not knowing her side of the story and not understanding her motives, you are Ellie's revenge. You don't care about this human being. You don't care what their backstory is. You just want to kill them. You do play as Abby for like a very brief moment at the beginning of the game in the snow. You meet Owen, but really, you don't know much about Abby or what her motives or the group's motives are. So I think allowing you as the player to take Ellie and just be full-blown rage and revenge, and the notes in the city and the stories left behind make you despise the WLF even more, because you learn, they killed a girl for doing graffiti against them. They're forcing these little towns to be part of their group or get killed. It's very good at building up, these people are bad people. This entire group of people are terrible. So you don't feel any guilt, you don't feel any remorse at killing them all. Wanted to kill as many of them as possible. It wasn't until the dogs came when I was really concerned with, okay, now I gotta be really smart because I don't want to kill the dogs. That was like my main goal of this game. Obviously, the controls were beautiful. They were breezy, easy breezy. The fluidness, the jump capabilities, they really improved everything. I really enjoyed, being able to utilize the traps, being able to utilize Molotov cocktails. Searching for stuff is always something I love to do because I want to be able to build as many supplies as possible. Appreciated the bow and arrow. I was way better at that than the gun. The fight combinations and her deadly knife, Ellie just was kicking ass. And it felt so good because you're avenging your father figure, Joel, who we love. The only time I really felt guilt was when I accidentally killed those people who were deserters of the WLF in their apartment. And I already found that note that explained that they were on the hit list for the WLF. So that was really bad. It did not feel good. And I really felt really bad about that part of the game. I feel like a real jerk. Friday night is like my night to play. And so I would just be up so late because I was just like, I gotta keep going. I gotta find Abby. And it was great. The buildup was fantastic. I really, really loved Dina as a companion. Dina held her own way more than Ellie did with Joel, in my opinion. Dina really saved my ass on multiple occasions, especially with clickers. Really missed her when, you know, we got the bomb dropped on us that she was pregnant. But it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, we tortured someone to get information out of them. We killed a lot of people. We killed a pregnant woman. We killed Owen, who was kind of the good guy. You know, if it wasn't for Owen, we'd probably be dead. And so there were a lot of moments where it was like, oh, that's so messed up, but it felt very real. I obviously am always going to be on Ellie's side. I love Ellie, but she also was making some poor decisions, in my opinion, especially with the leaving Jesse to go get Tommy and her just going straight for Abby. That's your uncle, man. Like, I was upset with her. I was like, what are you doing? Like, first off, Jesse could die because he's going by himself, and Tommy could die if Jesse doesn't get to him. So I was super disappointed with that. She just became so blinded with her rage. And like us, I think the whole first 10 hours, we were kind of doing everything with blinders on of like, who cares who these people are? Who cares about anything? I'm gonna freaking kill and murder everyone I need to achieve my goal of reaching Abby and avenging Joel. Jesse, I really grew to love. They did a really good job of developing his character, and I just love Jesse. He's a good guy. That should have been a little hint of maybe we shouldn't be doing some of the stuff that we're doing. Then Abby walks in and kills Jesse immediately, so I was pissed because I love Jesse. I loved him so much that I had kind of expected him to die because he was too likable of a character. And so then, boom, all of a sudden we are Abby in the past. Speaking of past, I think they did a fantastic job with the flashbacks. They never felt out of place. They never felt jarring. They always had so much of an emotional impact, especially with Joel in the museum. Just those beautiful, tender moments. So much like the draft moment, seeing Ellie, you know, learn the truth about what had happened in the first game at the end. It felt so heavy, reliving that as her and Joel and like his pain of having to explain to her what actually happened and understanding why so many of the flashbacks earlier in the game as Ellie, like when she was with Tommy, why she was so angsty and upset. And it was because she didn't get to save the world like she wanted to. And it wasn't that the Fireflies didn't need her. It wasn't that she was just angry she didn't get to ask questions and learn a little bit about why she's immune. It was the fact, like, he killed all those people. He didn't give her a chance and he saved her life. And although any parent, I think, could completely put themselves in Joel's shoes and agree that he made the right decision, that's hard to live with, that survivor's guilt of not only just being a survivor, but the fact that you could have saved millions of people if the cure had worked out, and that being taken from you because one man's kind of selfish decision. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry, I'm gonna try to edit this. My thoughts are just everywhere. I'm literally doing this off like the top of my head. I have nothing written down. So now, being as Abby, we learn her father was the Firefly surgeon, and he was the guy who was the smartest dude that they had, and he was going to be able to make the cure. And he had to kind of struggle with that decision of, yeah, this is terrible because this girl is going to die, but at the same time, it could save the world. It's that justification of save one or save many, and it's most people, I think, in his positions, in his shoes, would choose to save the many. Abby being his daughter and her saying, I would want you to do it. Would he actually do it? Who knows? And so, you know, seeing that he was a good guy, he saved a zebra, he was a good father. From what we saw for those brief moments, you know, they obviously built up his character. I immediately was like, that's the guy from Friday Night Lights. I love that guy. But it was really sad for her. She went through the death of her father at the hands of this person who she came to find out was Joel. And she grew her resentment and hatred towards him. Not only did she lose her father, she lost the Fireflies as well. Because if you look at that note, they disbanded. So then she had nowhere to go at that point. So then it looks like the Fireflies had then been welcomed in by the WLF, and then, you know, the rest is history from there. So I felt that was very important to show her humble beginnings. She had a great relationship with her father, and it was taken away from her. And so it made her hard and angry, and it made her want revenge, and that's why she freaking got buff as hell. And I don't get why people are so up in arms about her arms. Who cares? Who cares if she's buff? Who cares if she's skinny? No matter what, you weren't gonna like her because she killed Joel. It's about the storytelling, the story behind her, and I think as we progress as Abby in the second half of the game, you can empathize with her. At least I could. I should start speaking from me because I know a lot of people hated the second half of this game. So then we're introduced to Abby in Abby's world, and the parallels between Jackson and the parallels between the WLF stadium are obviously apparent unless you just were so angry you weren't looking, which, you know, I do get. Like, people can be angry. You're allowed to be angry. It saddens me that some people just were so mad that they couldn't try to see through it or try to kind of open yourself up to the second half of the story. For me, I really empathized with her, and that was something I wasn't expecting to happen. I wanted to kill Abby. That was my goal. I wasn't exactly like, oh, hey, Abby, yay. I can't wait to find out her story. It was kind of like, okay, this is interesting. Let's see where this goes. I don't think anyone expected to be like half the game. But I was not upset with it. I was not unhappy with it. I just was so enthralled in the story. I just wanted to keep playing and find out what happens. But, you know, the Jackson food line, the WLF food line, the little conversations between people, seeing the children in school, people out for assignment, people like, you know, there was definitely that parallel there of these people who we had seen as villains the entire beginning of the game. Maybe they weren't villains. And as we progressed as Abby, we kind of learned that they were just this rogue group of people who were Fireflies who wanted revenge on Joel. I don't believe Isaac or the entire WLF was like, yeah, go kill that guy. Like, no, I don't think so. I think maybe they had gotten permission to go as a small group, take care of it, do whatever you need to do, and then come back. But that's not going to concern the whole WLF. It's kind of like we villainized the whole of them when it was kind of just actions of a small few. And there's a ton of people living there. So obviously it's really interesting to see all of these people, her group of friends specifically that we had murdered, see the real human side of them. They really did a good job humanizing them in the 10-hour Abby run, or however long it was, because I took way longer than the 20 hours, I'm pretty sure. Seeing the dogs, it was so weird seeing the dogs and being on the side where then we got Alice as our companion. It's like just a completely different side of them. I think they just did a really fantastic job of writing the story where you're like, oh crap, I started to like Manny. I was like, I should not like Manny. This dude spit on Joel's dead body. But I started liking him. He was like a very funny guy. So it's kind of crazy when your mind starts seeing the other side of the story, the other side of the coin, pun intended, that these people aren't just terrible human beings. They did something terrible. They did something out of pain and anger, thinking it was going to help Abby, and then it really turns out that it doesn't, because she has nightmares. She still doesn't seem like super happy. She kind of just seems to be going through the motions. She makes jokes here and there, but it's not like she's super happy in life, I don't think. I think she's definitely still holding on to that hurt. I thought it was super interesting and really smart that they had us do the Scars storyline with her, of showing the Scars were the mortal enemy of the WLF. As Ellie, we pretty much assume the Scars are just horrible, terrible human beings, because they kind of are. They're disemboweling people. They're not great human beings. But once you meet Lev, once you meet Yara, obviously there's a kind of a mutual, like they had to survive, and that's why we ended up together in the first place, because Abby was going to get murdered and Yara was going to get murdered, and they kind of helped each other out, started this relationship. They're on the opposite teams, so these people aren't supposed to be helping each other, and they do end up helping each other. And in a way, I think it helped open up Abby a lot of, you know, why are we doing this? Why, you know, like, it's just one of those examples of Abby saw Jackson people as the enemy because Joel was there. We saw the WLF as evil people because Abby was there. The WLF sees evil Scars as the terrible human beings they are, but really, all of them aren't like that. Lev keeps explaining to us that the violence they've been showing, the using the weapons and stuff, it wasn't in the original teachings. It's something that the group of people had kind of changed to help and benefit themselves. Because the whole time I was like, just stay on your damn island and this wouldn't be a problem. But at the same time, the WLF was like, this is our territory. So it's, who's right? Who knows? Is anyone honestly all good? I'm sure there's lots of people in Jackson, like Joel and Tommy, who did really bad things in order to survive. And so there's always going to be somebody that sees that group of people as the enemy. And I think that's what the story was trying to tell us. There's a side to everybody. As we were killing all these people as Ellie, it's like, that WLF member probably has a daughter at home. That WLF member probably has a wife. Are they going to want revenge now? Because we definitely didn't think about them and what they could be going through, or who we're hurting by killing these people. So it really just makes you like take a step back and go, this is kind of messed up with what we've done. And it's kind of just as bad as the Abby's done. So I think they did a really good job of that, in my opinion. I loved Yara and Lev. Like, if you didn't like Yara and Lev, I think there's something kind of wrong with you, because they were just innocent in this, and especially because they were enemies of the Scars. So you're like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. Their storyline was just very important to me. I just really wanted to find out what was going to happen to these people. And watching Abby literally kill her leader and start killing WLF to protect Yara and Lev, Yara, was, I think, a really great arc. She was like Miss WLF. Her dad was the Firefly surgeon. She was high up there, and she was going to be Isaac's #1 to be sent over and do all this stuff. And she cared more about Owen in the relationship with him than the WLF because, you know, she loved Owen. They had a really weird sex scene. But I just think that was, wow, like if somebody like Abby can change their mind of being Miss WLF to going against them and becoming traitor #1, that's pretty crazy. That's a pretty crazy arc. And I loved Abby. I grew to love Abby, even though she did such a terrible, terrible thing. I did. I will say, as I'm so behind on my gameplay, so I've been rewatching Ellie's portions now that I've experienced Abby's portions. It's crazy how they tied these two stories together. There are moments where you're playing as Ellie and, you know, you're hiding and you're listening to WLF have conversations together, but you're not realizing like what they're actually talking about. And now that I know Abby's story, I'm hearing them like, oh, the big thing's happening tonight, like, you know, when they're gonna attack the island. Did you hear what Abby did? Even the Scars, you hear the Scars having conversations like, did you hear what Lily did? And it's like, holy crap, it was blowing my mind. All the little hints throughout were completely connected to Abby, as well as situations where things I was doing as Ellie, Abby was doing things at the same time in the hospital with like following Nora and everything. They're like, why is the power on? It's like, because Abby turned the power on and she's like gonna go fight the Rat King. Like, it's crazy. There's just so many beautiful moments of where I was like, wow, I'm feeling so many things and this is just a video game, you know? It's like the aquarium with Owen and seeing Abby's hurt, seeing Ellie's hurt, the flashbacks, the PTSD, these things are all so realistic and things that so many people deal with in real life. I know a lot of people were like, oh, they're pushing their agenda, their liberal agenda of the LGBTQ and having trans people and having lesbians, and people are really upset and spewing hate about that kind of stuff. And it's like, in my opinion, I'm sick of seeing straight white people fighting. We've already had that stuff. Guys, it's 2020, let's be inclusive. These are the things that exist in the world. People are going through these things. Why not discuss them? Why not have a character who's a lesbian? Why not have a character who wants to be a boy? Like, these things happen. So why keep telling the same stories we've always been telling with the same white bread sliced people? I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I think they told the story really well. I'm glad that they didn't just make Ellie like a Disney gay person where it's like, oh yeah, we'll just say Gaston's buddy's gay, but there's like, okay, there's no story about it. There's no relationship with him. There's no seeing him go through anything important. It's just like, let's just throw a gay character in there to say we're progressive. And it's like, no, you're not. I thought it was great, the relationship between Dina and Ellie. I loved them together. It was just realistic. It was the same interactions you would have if it was a male protagonist and a female protagonist who were in love. So I had absolutely no problem with it. I had more of a problem that people had a problem with it, to be honest with you. Like, get over it. Get over yourselves. Seeing that she was accepted, but also seeing that she had a bigot to deal with at some point. I thought they just did a fantastic job with that as well. And I guess I'm just going to come off as like a Naughty Dog Neil sympathizer, I guess. But this is just literally how I feel. I never felt bored. I never felt like, oh, this game sucks. I enjoyed it thoroughly the entire time. I'm down for a good John Wick 1 through 3. I'm down for a good Kill Bill. I'm down for revenge. But in this case, I think it just really showed us that nobody wins in revenge. I'm going to continue my thoughts, I think, in the next video, so 1 second. I enjoyed playing as Abby enough and understanding her story and side of things that when it came to killing Ellie, clearly I didn't want to kill Ellie in that fight. I let myself die a couple times because I was like, I'm not going to kill Ellie. Until it took me so long. That was the longest part of the whole game, was the fight between Ellie and Abby in the theater. I didn't want either of them to win, really. I wanted them both to live through that. And so that was something that I hadn't expected to feel at that point in the game. I definitely didn't want to kill Ellie. There's no way you're going to have me kill Ellie. Like, that wasn't going to happen. But I did feel for Abby as well. And so when Abby, you know, if it wasn't for Lev, who knows what would have happened to Ellie and Dina when Abby's like blind rage. I think that really shows that growth from Abby. So when we do get to see the glimpse of Ellie's good life with Dina and baby JJ and how sweet that was, I at first thought it was a dream. I was like, there's no way this is real. It's too cute. It's too nice, especially for this world. It's too beautiful. Something bad has to happen, which obviously was Tommy coming over and guilting Ellie. And I was just so frustrated with Ellie. I was like, don't go. It's not going to do anything. You have everything you have now. Yes, you have PTSD. Yes, you're having flashbacks. But regardless of if you kill Abby or not, you are still going to have those things. And that's part of like the journey of healing. And it's going to take a very long time to heal from something like that, something super traumatic.
Not to mention all the crap she did in Seattle. I was super bummed when she went to go find them. But in the same token, if it wasn't for Ellie going and finding them, who knows what would have happened to Abby and Lev. So it's like this really crazy turn of events, really. And it was the first time in a game where I got to the end and I was like, please, I don't want anyone to win. I don't want anyone to lose. I want these people, I just wanted them to have a conversation. I really wanted them to have a conversation of, hey, this is where I'm coming from. Okay, let's try to see mutual ground. Let's try to understand each other's motives. And I think there was a glimmer of that in the theater when Ellie raises her hands and says, I know why you killed him. I'm the one you want. I'm the one that has the immunity. And I was really hoping for them to have a conversation there, which obviously didn't happen, but I did want that like Kill Bill moment where they sit down and really like understand each other. But you know, you don't always get that with people that hurt you in your life. They say forgive for yourself, and while there's people in my life I don't know if I could ever forgive for things they had done, you have to move on from it for yourself, for your own sanity. Because if you just hold on to that anger and you hold on to that hate, you're going to become a resentful person. You're going to turn to things like drugs and alcohol because you're just hurt and you're not facing the facts with that. And that's what Ellie did. She said, oh, okay, Abby, I'm going for her. This will fix things. And it won't. It won't fix things. And the end of the game was just fantastic the way they did it, because you're always on Ellie's side. Like, you played the whole first game with her. Like, you love Ellie. So for me to be this other character who did something so horrific to Ellie and to be able to empathize with her shows how crazy great the storytelling was, because it worked. After I killed Alice, which made me feel terrible, and they made me to kill Alice, it wasn't like my decision, I was like, these people are gonna John Wick my ass. Like, look at, there's 3 movies. So the fact that they got me to feel for Abby and understand her, they just did such a good job of humanizing these characters. Like I said, for the first time in my life, hope nobody wins at the end of the game.
This feels so wrong.
Which I was so thrilled that Ellie didn't do it. I was like, thank God.
Jesus Christ, I thought Abby was dead.
I was just so happy. It was sad because it's like, look how much she had lost to not obtain her goal. She lost her fingers, she lost her girlfriend, her baby, her connection to Joel, obviously, with the guitar. Yeah, you can learn to play with your other hand or things like that, but that's not the point they were trying to make, you know. Was it worth it? No, it wasn't worth it. It's never worth it. It will make you feel good for the short while, and then you have to face the facts of what your day-to-day life now is. I do want to say a couple things that I thought were really great touches. The fact that Ellie lived in Joel's backyard. I saw a video where they talk about all the little things in this game, and I had no idea, and I was like, oh. That flashback at the end of the game where Joel and Ellie are having that conversation, and she's obviously had a really hard time facing the fact that Joel murdered all these people to save her, and that's why the world could possibly be doomed forever. But I thought it was beautiful that she finally was willing to forgive him and work towards healing that broken bond. And so I thought that was just a beautiful moment that she was finally able to say she wanted to welcome Joel back into her life. And at the same time, it's heartbreaking because the next day he dies. And while we're out with Dina, she even says, what are your plans? And she says, oh, I think I'll invite Joel over for a movie. That's life, though. You don't always get to fix everything with everyone. But I think she did realize that he was coming from a good place. And I was like, as a parent myself, I would freaking do it. And both of them at the end of the game looking so rough, that was such a crazy transformation of like, look at what both these women have gone through. You know, when Abby and Lev first arrived to Santa Barbara, I was like, wow, this is really hopeful. Like, Abby's feeling really good. And I feel like almost the happiest she had felt in the whole game. And then obviously they what happened to them happened. But it was like she finally was like free, I think, also because she lost all of her people. Abby lost everything. Like, Ellie lost her father figure, yes. Abby literally lost her biological father, her family of the Fireflies because they disbanded afterward. Post Joel, Ellie takes out all of her friends, who are her family, her friends, her lover, her dog, because of her storyline with Lev and Yara and deciding to protect these people instead of blindly killing them just because they are the Scars and they're the enemy. She chose them over her WLF family, so that she then became public enemy number 1 for the WLF. So she lost everything and everyone. It ends up just being Lev, and that's all she has to go off of. And so she had to kind of reinvent her whole life again from scratch. And I think that allowed her in a lot of ways to heal. I would say it's a 10 out of 10. I had a blast. I had a blast playing it. It was difficult. I really loved the different sides of the Abby story and the Ellie story. and the fact that their combat was different. Abby was so strong and was like a brute, and then there's Ellie, she's scrappy and does the, you know, plants bombs and stuff, and I enjoyed having pipe bombs as Abby. Like, there were just so many different things. It was like 2 games wrapped into one, and I think that takes a lot of balls to pull off and a lot of guts, and I think they tied it together perfectly. And I would give it a 10 out of 10. The only part I got frustrated at was Abby versus Ellie #1, because I just couldn't get Ellie. She's freaking scrappy, man. Which is great because you love Ellie, but I thought it was a fantastic game, and I would recommend people play it with an open mind. I think people went in with just unrealistic expectations. Yeah, okay, maybe he did die a terrible death, and it was very early on in the game. Maybe most people expected, okay, maybe if he does die, it'll be later in a blaze of glory, or maybe he'll get bit or something. But that's happened in so many damn games that it's like they wanted to freaking put a shock to the gut where you want to kill everyone just as much as Ellie does. And I think they nailed that. That if you didn't want everyone's head on a platter after that, you weren't as connected to Joel. I think it took a lot of guts, and I really appreciate it, and I loved it, and I want to play it again, which is crazy because I don't have time to play video games, so I gotta be real wise about what I play. So, I don't know, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please don't get into fights, be respectful of each other. And people are gonna tell me to go kill myself, that's not gonna work, so save your breath on that. Really appreciate you guys watching me ramble. I'm sorry if this has been so long. I just can't stop talking about this game. Like, every time I would play, I would text my friend, like, I'm at this part, because he had already beat it. And so we would just have these long conversations talking about this game, because it's just one of those games where your mind's just going. So thank you, Naughty Dog. Thank you, Neil, even though you're getting death threats. Thank you, the person that was the face and the voice actor of Abby, and I think those are 2 different people, but who got death threats for it. Be better, guys. It's a video game. Don't take it so seriously. But yeah, so I'm gonna try to wrap this up for the 100th time. See you guys next time.